From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. And I really want to get into focusing on things like entrepreneurship, business, how to be successful in life and business. And I recently saw a video that Judd Weiss did at Anarchapulco with Adam Kokesh, and he really got into quite a bit of detail, and you might want to check out that video as well, because we won't get into all the detail. He got into those particular stories about how he started up and how he became one of the top real estate people really in most of the US, or at least the area he's in there in Los Angeles. And it was a really interesting story. I want to get into a little bit of that, Judd, but I don't want to go into it as in-depth as you did with Adam, because if people want to hear the full story, they can go there. I want to get into more talking about what we've learned from our business lives, from being more successful. I hear this a lot from a lot of anarchist libertarians out there that they want to become entrepreneurs, or they want to be successful in various businesses, but they don't really know how. And I actually almost don't blame them, because they really don't teach that stuff in school. I don't even know what business school is or what they're teaching there, but I don't know why it's 4 years, because I think in the next 45 minutes or so, we could probably give people all the information you really need to know about doing business and being successful. So, Judd, it's great to have you on. I just saw you down here at Anarchapulco. You were doing, as usual, doing a lot of photography. Can't wait to see the photos. And it's great to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jeff. I appreciate that intro. Yeah, I have a lot to say on that stuff. But by the way, first, before we get into that, I just want to say I'm really so impressed with you and what you did with Anarchapulco. That far exceeded my expectations this year. It blew away last year, and last year exceeded my expectations. And you just keep going over and above. I'm really impressed with what you're doing, Jeff.
Oh, thank you. And actually, that is one thing about doing business, is you always want to exceed expectations every single time. That's what really makes people go, wow, what is this? I got to come back. This is, every time it's better than I thought it was going to be. And I can guarantee you, Judd, we've already began planning for 2019. We are going to make 2018 look like no big deal. It's going to blow everyone away. The planning you would not even imagine at this point. And I'm so excited about it, because it really is a passion of mine, obviously, to do these sort of things and really get people all together and talking about these things. And so many amazing people came down, as you saw. So, but again, in this video, I really want to focus on the entrepreneurialism, business, how to be successful just generally in life. You're coming in there, as usual, from your house there in Los Angeles. I don't know how many millions of dollars it's worth, but I've been there, and it's definitely not a cheap house at all. And from what you were telling Adam about how you got started in real estate, it was a very interesting story. You did it at quite a young age. I think you said 23 years old. So there's a lot of people out there who are like 23, 24, and they don't know what they want to do in life. So why don't you give them a little bit about your background on how you went from being not knowing anything about real estate to 1 or 2 years later being almost on top of the business?
Well, I was selling things since I was in high school. So I started selling knives, phone service. I was selling knives for Cutco when I didn't have a car. I was taking the Metro bus, and I'd walk up the hills to people's houses with a bag of knives, sweating, trying to get them to buy the stuff. So I've been in sales for a long time, since I was really young. I was just hustling, trying to figure out a way to make some money. And I started selling phone service, and then I started selling this Rolex watches. That's when I first started actually doing pretty well. I don't know shit about Rolexes. I didn't care. I was 18 at the time. I had like a $5 watch on my wrist. My outfit was like maybe $15 total. Like, I didn't give a shit. I was a sloppy 18-year-old. And I started selling Rolexes on eBay, and they didn't know if I'm like a 50-year-old gentleman or whatnot. They have no idea. And I knew how to write, and I knew how to communicate, and I started developing my ability to take pictures of watches, actually. That was my first foray. Anyway, I learned some sales because I learned pressure. I learned, it was the first time I sold something it wasn't like a $30 bicycle or something cheap. It was like, or even a nice bicycle. It was like a $7,000 watch. So people get really pissed off. And learning how to manage people that are very jumpy is big. Oh, we got some dogs. All right, the sound got muted. But learning how to manage people that are really jumpy and quickly irritable was an incredible experience for me at 18. People called me up on the phone, woke me up in the morning because they're on the East Coast. It's like 6:30 in the morning. They just got their watch and something was wrong and they're screaming at me. Learning, as much as I was miserable going through that, learning those lessons of how to deal with people that are really irate and pissed off was extremely helpful, because then it taught me how to like take handle of those situations and calm them down. So it was selling Rolexes was a huge step, but it wasn't until I got into commercial real estate that I ran into serious issues. Now you're dealing with not a couple $1,000 matters. You're dealing with, you make a mistake and it's a few $100,000 matter, and people get really jumpy when this is one of their biggest assets they're either selling or buying. And everybody jumps to the lawyers really fast. So learning how to navigate other sales led me to be able to deal with commercial properties a lot easier. But I got into selling commercial real estate. I was 22, I was turning 23. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was way too young to be expecting people to, let's say, pay me 6% of their major asset to sell it or to be involved in this transaction. They're not going to trust me with 6% of one of their major assets. That's several $1 million. As a 22, 23-year-old, I have that same prejudice if I met a 22, 23-year-old, unless they really impress me in some extreme way. And that's what I had to do. I had to shock people dramatically. I want to get into that a little bit. Maybe get into that a little bit later. But anyway, I sold a lot of real estate, and I went from hopeless, not knowing what I'm going to be able to close a deal. I said on Adam's show, I spent like $30,000, which is what I had as my savings when I was 22. I spent it all, and I had zero to show for it in 6 months. So I almost gave up. The next 6 months, I made $100,000 in 6 months. And then the next year, I was in the top 10 in the state of California, top 20 in the world at Remax Commercial. When I was 24, I was 25. And then when I was 26, I was number 18 in the world. I did really well. I bought this house when I was 24, and I'm in Bel Air, and I started crushing it really fast. But there's a lot of things that I did that I think a lot of people are missing. There's really important aspects, and we can go into those details in the weeds, but that's a quick story.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get into a lot of those details and things like that. I think one of the things that came to my mind when you were mentioning these stories, because a lot of people say, well, how am I going to become like one of the top real estate people in the world like Judd? Like Judd just said, you don't just start doing that. You actually, through all of your experiences, you build up certain skills. So as he mentioned, while he was in school or whatever he was in, he was always hustling and he was learning. And even by selling knives, he had to learn how to do that. And then when he started selling watches, he had to learn how to deal with the pressure. So this is something that I've always said as well, is just start doing something. No matter what it is, it's going to give you some sort of experience. Even if you fail at it, let's say you start tomorrow trying to sell Rolex watches and 3 months from now you couldn't do it. Well, you've learned a lot of stuff. You learned couldn't you do it? Maybe you're not really good at sales. So should you get better at sales, or should you just not even be in sales? That's a whole other sort of thing. It's if that's not your particular thing that you're good at, but you learn that during that process. So for me, Judd, when I talk to people who want to be entrepreneurs, they always seem to have like, oh, I shouldn't do this, or I don't see how I'm going to get there. It's like, just start doing stuff. All this stuff builds towards something as long as you just continue to learn, right?
Keep creating opportunities. You never know what doors that will open up. So on Adam's show, I kept talking about the big main thing of all of this is value. Value, value, value. I can't say that enough. Ultimately, what you've got to do is build your value. And at the beginning, you don't have much value. I mean, at one point, none of us knew how to tie our shoes. You start completely ignorant in any new field that you go into. So when I started Rolexes, I didn't know anything about Rolexes. I didn't care. I had to learn about what kind of buyers they were. I had to learn about the watches. I had to learn about what is a counterfeit, what are the motivations, the story behind it. And the same thing in commercial real estate. I had to really, at first I didn't know what I was doing. I just saw that there's a lot of money transferring hands, and I wanted to be in the middle of it. And now, why should I be in the middle of it? what am I bringing to the table besides the fact that I just want to sell? So you see a lot of brokers that, bless their hearts, they're persistent, but they're not bringing value to the situation. They're just cold calling. Hi, Mrs. Jane, would you like to sell your property? Nope. Hi, Mr. Edwards, would you like to sell your property? Nope. And they just keep doing it like a machine. They don't stop. There's something to be said for persistence, but they're not focused on bringing value to the table. They're just bringing persistence to the table. Persistence is great. It is a value, but it's not much. So I had to figure out, what do these people care about? I'm in commercial real estate, so that's not residential. So it's not about the kitchen or the backyard for their dogs and the kids. And they're not looking at it like that. They just care about every nickel of return on their money. It's commercial real estate. It's investment property. Some of these people don't even care to see the property. I've sold buildings where it was sight unseen. They just care about the return on their investment. So you have very strong characters who own the property selling to a very strong character that's buying it, and everybody's very demanding. So what I had to do, one of the big things I had to do from the beginning was learn how to turn a very competitive situation into a cooperative situation. Because otherwise you're stuck in the middle of a tug of war and you can't bring these stubborn bastards together. There's like nothing you can do. They're really intense. So what I have to figure out is how to treat everybody like we're all on the same side here. You want to sell, he wants to buy, I want to make this work. We're all a team. How can we make everybody happy instead of trying to piss off everybody every step we take? That's one huge, huge matter that a lot of people don't realize. So I read a lot of books that were very helpful. One of those was a book called Getting to Yes. It's probably the basis of my negotiation style. I recommend everybody read it if you haven't. It's a fundamental book. If you don't read that, there's a lot built off of that you're gonna be behind on. So Getting to Yes was fundamental. And there's an anecdote from that I explained in the interview with Adam about the two boys fighting over an orange. Let me explain that one again real quick for your viewers. It's a real key understanding about negotiation. There's this anecdote about two boys fighting over an orange. One boy says, I want it. The other boy says, I want it. Well, now you've got a conflict. They could compromise. They could cut that orange in half, 50-50. And one boy, he ate the fruit and threw away the peel. And the other boy threw away the fruit and kept the peel. He just wanted it for cooking something. So the point of that story was compromise might not be the optimal solution. You're not looking for compromise. You're looking for the optimal solution. If one boy was really tough, a strong negotiator, everybody was afraid to bother negotiating with him. He dug in his heels and he got 66% of the orange. He still did worse himself than if he tried to figure out what the optimal situation was here. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So people are focused on winning. They're not focused on what's optimal. And that's huge. So everybody wants more dollars if they're selling and spend less dollars if they're buying. So no deal is ever that clean cut like the orange. But the orange gives you an idea. There's more terms to the deal than the orange or than the money. So people, you need to figure out not what a buyer or seller's position is. Their position is what they're saying, and what they're saying out of their mouth is impossible. You can't put those deals together because their positions are conflicting. Those positions won't work. You need to find out the interest behind those positions. And if you can do that, then you can engineer a more cooperative dynamic and actually get a deal closed. Huge. That put so much money in my pocket, just trying to figure out how to turn these tug of war matches into a cooperative situation where I actually got the seller trying to figure out, he's brainstorming now how to make the buyer happier. And I got the buyer brainstorming how to make the seller happier so that the buyer can get what he wants and the seller can get more of what he wants. It's amazing. Helped me close deals so much faster without all the animosity, and people will actually work together again after a large deal, which usually after commercial real estate deals close for several $1 million, the buyer and seller will never speak to each other again because it was so contentious. It's very normal. That's the norm.
Yeah, I don't know if what I do or have done my entire life applies necessarily to what you do in real estate. Because sometimes when it's a negotiation, and you're kind of like the negotiator. It's a little different, maybe. But as an entrepreneur, here's something that I don't know if I've ever told anyone before, but every single time I enter into an agreement with anyone, and it could be a potential employee, even though I don't really call them employees, I always say you're basically partners in my business. We are working together to make this business work. I don't look at anyone as an employee in this sort of, you talk to communists and Marxists and they don't like this, like, oh, there has to be a working class. It's like, we're all working here. And you know, because of my entrepreneurial business, I'm also talking with clients a lot, and also other people who are going to be helping out in various ways. And one thing I've always done my whole life, and I've never had this be a problem, in fact, this has, I think, helped me a lot, is every single negotiation I go into, I actually give them more than what they ask for. And the reason I usually do that, so I'll sit down, and usually they'll be kind of like, yeah, if they haven't done these sort of things before, let's say it's someone who wants to work with me, and I'm like, yeah, you look interesting, maybe I will work with you. And, you know, first thing I'll check that they have never gone to college, because I would never hire anyone who's done anything that stupid. But they'll say something like, you can kind of tell they're a little nervous. They know I've done a lot of business, a lot of stuff. And they'll go, you know, like, what I really want here is like 5% of this. And I'll go, you know what, make it 10%. And, you know, because I want to make this work. I want you to feel like this is awesome. Like, this is the best thing, that you wake up every morning and you want to make this work. And that has worked for me my entire life. So I know it's a little different in the negotiations when it comes to real estate, of course. But what I've found in negotiations that I just wanted to relay is, because a lot of people just assume, and I think this is sort of your point to an extent too, that when you go into a negotiation, it's got to be like this cutthroat sort of thing. You got to get it all and all that sort of thing. I found I always try to give more than what they ask. And what that led to in my life is every time I want to do business with anyone else, they're like, oh yeah, I hear you're the best to do business with. When I go and do other businesses, other people are like, how do I get involved in your new business? I've got this huge network of people who all want to work with me, because they just know, like, I'm not trying to screw them. In fact, I'm trying to give them the best situation where they can make the most money, and then I'll make even more money as well.
Absolutely, man. Always hook people up. Always give people a good situation. That's fantastic. I care about moving my life forward, not scraping every nickel out of every deal. And so, if there's more long-term benefit, then I just don't care. It's not important. It's a lot of times you really need to be focused more on always pay well for money. And if you can always pay well for money, you'll get more of it. So if somebody's going to bring me $10 every time I pay them five, essentially, I'll always do that deal. I don't even need to fight. I just want more of those deals coming. So if somebody's bringing me value, I want to encourage that to keep coming. So sometimes you want to give somebody better than what they're actually asking for. A lot of times, I do that all the time. It's a very common thing. If you're being really tight with people, you need to be tight. You need to be conscientious of your cash, just your resources. That's your fuel to fly. You can't be wasteful with that. But you want to keep encouraging that to come. So yeah, exactly. Don't think about, when you think about every nickel, often you're thinking about short term. You're not thinking long term. Sometimes the long term trumps that. So absolutely, you want to be constantly giving people a great situation. What I was talking about on Adam's show, I said the value is the fundamental piece of all of this. Ultimately, you need to bring value to the table. And so what you should try to do is be a fountain of value, splashing everybody all around you. Everybody that comes in contact with you gets hit with that. And then suddenly you become more valuable. You become waterfront property. Everybody wants a piece of your circle. Everybody wants a piece of people connected to you. There are people that are like wells of value. They just keep bringing value to everybody around them. And if that's the case, well, now you are bringing up, you are in higher demand, and you have more options, you have more opportunities, and all of that you can now leverage into bigger things, and you can bring more value to the situation. So the people that are being really tight, they're being short-sighted, they're not opening up all these doors and opportunities, which I think is key if you're going to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a little bit out of left field, a little bit compared to what we just talked about. But I was just thinking that when I've been talking to so many people who want to be entrepreneurs, like you probably have some experiences with this as well, where you're talking to them and you're like, I can see immediately why you're not successful, like because of certain things they're doing or certain ways they're acting or certain mindsets that they have. And the mindset one is a really big one. And this is something where all the work I've done personally on improving myself, health, mentally, physically, spiritually, all that kind of stuff has all, and getting into meditation, figuring out why you do things has really helped me. So I'm going to give you one example of this person that I've been helping recently. It was a person in Europe, was an amazing fashion designer, and I met her and I was like, whoa, that's amazing. And I'm like, so what's your website? I'm going to tell people about this. She's like, I don't have a website. I'm like, well, you should have a website. And got talking more and more. And I'm like, man, you could be like really huge. You're missing a few things. You need to understand you need a website. You need to, and she's like, well, how would I do sales? And I'm like, that's not that hard. Like, like I can help you do that in like 20 minutes. Like, so get a PayPal account and all these sort of things, right? Or accept Bitcoin. But what I found out through that experience, and I've seen this so many times in my life, is every time I would say to her to do something, her response would be, that's too hard, or even sometimes the response will come back, I'll never be successful. And I'm like, don't say that. Where is that coming from? And I even got talking to her more. I'm like, where is this? I'll never be successful. First of all, don't say that, because everything you say, you kind of create into reality, especially if you repeat it a lot. It's sort of like hypnosis. Your subconscious hears everything you say. But then, secondly, I got more into it, and it's like, well, that's what my dad said my whole life, and he says I'll never be a success. I'm like, okay, you got to get that out of your head. What I found, Judd, the point of this story a little bit is, most people's biggest enemy to their success is actually themselves. They have not figured out some of these things, and I wonder too, like knowing you, and you were quite good friends with Nathaniel Brandon, and I don't know his work all that well, but I know it has a lot to do with self-esteem, yeah, and all that sort of stuff. So maybe you can talk about how fixing yourself or getting in a better mindset in that way can help a lot of people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different elements of this to unpack. First of all, I teach. I've gotten pretty good with the camera. They've flown me out to shoot events all over the world. I have a bunch of photos behind me. I put them up in my house. And I came out to shoot Anarchast because I've been doing that. But I've taught people about photography. And the very first thing that I said in this workshop that I did was, it's not an obsessive compulsive disorder. It's an obsessive compulsive advantage. And if you don't have that, there's not much I can do to help you. You really need, I need to see that crazy driven gleam in your eye. Otherwise, there's not much I can do for you. Because obsessive is another word for passionate. And and if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you are, it's going to be way too much of a chore to get somebody to go through all those steps to transform themselves into an area they're not passionate about. I can't do it. I can't do it for them with a camera, and I can't do that for them even in business. I need them to be excited. And so it's okay. Sometimes it's realistic. Somebody should look at if they're passionate about this or not, if they're really excited about what they're doing or not. And if they're not, maybe they should change course. I don't know archery. I've never shot a crossbow. I don't think I'm passionate about it. I'm not going to be able to get good at it if I'm not, because that's intense, or any Olympic sport. I mean, I'm just not passionate about it. I'm not going to be an Olympic athlete. You need to find out where you're passionate about. So that's first. But if you are excited about something, then the self-esteem issues, yeah, that's significant. I've read a lot of Nathaniel Brandon's books. I felt like I was raised more by his books than my own parents. They're extremely important to me. There's probably nobody's had more of an influence on my life than Nathaniel Brandon. And my big takeaway, and I've told him this in person before he passed away, was self-esteem is on all of your books. I was telling you, self-esteem is on every single one of your books. But I think that's all bullshit, because you're not teaching people self-esteem. You're teaching people personal development, and as a consequence, as a secondary consequence, they're gaining self-esteem. So what he's and he smiled. He didn't necessarily endorse that, but he smiled. He appreciated that. The point is that your confidence comes from your results. Your assertiveness comes from your confidence. So you can be more assertive in what you're doing when you're more confident about it. And your confidence comes from your results, which comes from you actually building your skills. So you need to actually build up a skill. When we start anything, we're ignorant and we don't have any skills. So you need to actually go to the gym and build up your muscle, build up your skill set, build up your ability, build up your knowledge, build up your network, your connections, foster all of those things. And if you're not excited about that particular field, it's going to be real challenging to get you there. You're not going to push yourself through the skill set building, the connections, the knowledge, all of that stuff that you need to get ahead in anything. So sometimes maybe people should cut and change course if this is not where they want to be. But if it's just that they don't believe in themselves, well, honestly, they shouldn't. They're not at that level yet. So they can be. They just have to go to the gym. If they don't want to, I can't drag them through the gym. You can't drag them through a gym routine. They have to do it themselves. But if they want to improve, they certainly can. I was hopeless. Back in high school, man, I wore all black. I was a loner. I would have probably gotten voted least likely to succeed. If I can turn myself around, anybody can. I mean, I was always smart, but I was lost, man. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like depressed and like a loner. And I had to really think about how opening myself up to the world, putting myself in more vulnerable positions than I was comfortable with, getting myself into, I had anxiety and getting myself into situations where I allowed that to be. So people need to be able to push past their boundaries. And if they can, now there's somebody outside of their boundaries. They've transformed every time they step out of their boundary. And I really think that ultimately it takes an OCD, obsessive passion, in order to do that. So I need to see people being excited about it. And they certainly can. They just have to go to the gym. It's hard. It's stressful. It takes resources. Sometimes you're spending money. You don't have the return. But if you have a vision of something that you are excited about, you can pull through.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring up a lot of good points about passion, first of all. As you mentioned, don't do something you're not passionate about. Everyone in the world, as far as I've ever met, is passionate about something. And sometimes it's really weird things. Like, I've met maids who love cleaning houses. They love it. Awesome. Then you found what you want to do. And, if you want to, you could probably build a bigger maid company if you want. But if you don't want to, don't, But so, yeah, definitely the passion. I've seen so many people who are just like, well, I want to, you hear this all the time, like, I want to be a lawyer. Why? Well, my parents wanted me to be a lawyer. It's like, okay, well, who cares what your parents want? Yeah. Yeah. And then secondly, are you passionate about it? No. Then don't do it. Find what you are passionate about. And when you are passionate about something, then everything really comes a lot easier, right? And you do mention, like, nothing's actually easy. Like, someone might be watching this video right now and go, oh, Judd just got lucky with real estate, and look at Berwick, that guy's just lucky all the time. And, no, man, like, I'm sure we could go into bad stories a lot. I've got, like, I could fill 10 hours with them all. Almost killed myself numerous times in business deals that I got screwed on. And, like, it's not easy, but if you have the passion and you that passion drives you through the tough times, and then have the like, as Judd said, you don't necessarily have to have the self belief or even self-esteem, so to speak, that you can do it, but just know that you probably can, but you have to go through it. And like Judd said, just put in the work every day. It's like going to the gym. If I ever were to tell everyone everything I've done my entire life that has led me to the point I'm at now, and I'm still not all that successful, but I do okay, it'd be shocking to most people. It's like, holy cow, that was a lot of work. Like, every day I'm working on myself. And Judd's even brought up how many books that he's read that have changed his life just in the last few minutes. So he's reading books, and you hear that about CEOs quite a bit, about they read like 3 books a week or something. It wouldn't surprise me, because you're just the real keys to success. I think we just brought up a few of them. Passion, constant learning, constant self-improvement, and not giving up as well. That's another big one. I see a lot of people just sort of give up, and you actually almost did that, Judd, with your real estate. You were 6 months in, and that's another thing too, invest in yourself. I hear that a lot. Someone will say, hey, I finally have a bit of money from Bitcoin. I got like $20,000. What should I invest in? It's like yourself. You are always your best investment. Now, if you get up to like tens of millions or hundreds of millions, and you don't really have this big plan or anything to do, well, then you can start investing, and you know that's fine or whatever. And if you actually are a good investor, maybe that is something you should do. But very few people have the mindset for that. But just continue to push through and don't give up, and just have that knowledge that you can do anything. And if there's anything, Judd, that I've learned is every single plan I've ever had, and people might go, oh, you're just been lucky all the time. Like it's came true. My first plan when I was 13 years old, I first started liking girls, and this is way back, Judd. I don't know how old you are, but I'm pretty sure I'm quite a bit older than you. This is back in like the early 1980s. I was like 13 years old, and there used to be a game on television called Match Game, and every year they would change the name. So it'd be Match Game 78, Match Game 79, and when it changed to Match Game 80, I was like, whoa, this is so different. 80, this is what a big change. And when I was around 13, I started liking girls, and I looked around, and I thought, man, one day there's going to be a Match Game 2000. That's going to be so crazy. And then I started thinking, that'll be the best New Year's Eve party of all time. And then my next thought was, oh crap, I'll be too old to enjoy it. I'll be 30 years old. There's no way I could possibly enjoy it. I'll be way too old. But I made a promise to myself, or not, I just said it. I remember doing it, and I didn't actually remember it until I turned 30. This is really interesting. So I'm at a New Year's Eve party in Australia with my girlfriend, and I remembered, I remember thinking about this when I was young. When I was 13, I said, by the year 2000, first of all, I'll be too old to enjoy it, but secondly, I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. That was my plan. And I was 30, New Year's Eve party in Australia. I was worth over $100 million at the time. Every single time I've gone out to do something and had a plan, it will come true, but usually it will come true after a ton of hard work. And life itself will test you. I actually think life, or the universe, or God, or whatever you want to call it, will actually test you to make sure you really want it. But as long as you stick with it, you pretty much can do whatever you want. That's my experience.
Yeah. First of all, as far as passion goes, I mean, sometimes I had no passion for Rolexes when I was doing that. Zero. I didn't care. But I had passion for making money. So sometimes that's okay. I had a passion for learning how to like make those sales. When it came to commercial real estate, before I jumped into that, I was starting to sell music videos for a production company, and I was really excited about that. I was so excited, except that I realized that a lot of my income is based off people's subjective tastes of our directors that we were representing. And then I realized I don't like this at all. This is really tedious to try to get a music video put together. I love all these bands, and I'm talking to them, and that's cool, but this is not the life that I want to live. So I went into commercial real estate, which I initially thought was boring, but then I'm dealing with all these crazy bastards taking big risks with lots of money. They're really intense characters. It wasn't real estate. It was dealing with these stubborn bastards and trying to get them to work together, no matter how stubborn they were. That was really exciting. It was like really challenging chess puzzles to put together, and getting everything together for everybody and making sure that everybody's happy. That was intense. And I felt like I really loved that. I really loved like each time I'm trying to put a deal together, it's like a combination, like a roller coaster and like a board game, you know? it's like a board game, but roller coaster style. So it was really challenging, and I had a passion for that. I really liked it. And then I went from completely ignorant, where I knew nothing and I had no hope of closing a deal, to I said after 6 months I almost gave up because deals were slipping through my fingers, and I had nothing to show for myself. So I felt like, damn man, maybe I'm not appropriate for this world of commercial real estate. I don't fit in. I'm too young. I can't do this. This is not working. I need to take a hard look at myself and really reevaluate this situation. And And the thing that I didn't realize was the fact that deals were slipping through my fingers is an indication of improvement, because in the past I had no hope. I was totally ignorant. So I gained some knowledge, I gained some connections. I was talking to these multimillionaire property owners, and they were really short with me. They hang up the phone on me and they didn't want to talk, and they're really rude, actually. So I was like, shit, man, like I'm annoying people. I'm not helping. I'm not bringing any value to this situation. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I need to give up. But the fact that deals were slipping through my fingers shows that I've actually improved. I'm at the cusp of becoming barely competent. It took me 6 months to get there in commercial real estate, but barely competent is improvement over completely incompetent. And then from there, I got actually somewhat decent, and then I got good, then I got pretty good, and then I became excellent in it. I don't know if I ever achieved a mastery in commercial real estate, but you build up your skill set, and you have to look at almost competent is an improvement, and a lot of people don't. So a lot of people give up right before they're about to break through. It's an incredibly common situation. And it's partially because I was so frustrated after spending all this time. It's actually more frustrating when the deals are slipping through your fingers, because I'm a grown man, but I felt like crying, man. It's a lot of money. And I was like, I really wanted that. I worked so hard. I kind of started counting these things, and it was ripped away from my hands. So it was really challenging to get through that almost becoming competent phase. But a lot of people give up right there. It's an extremely common situation. So yeah, pushing through, you have to just build. You have to go to the point where people just want to start a new thing and they just want to be incredibly good at it. You have to know that you're going to have to go through those stages of being ignorant, building your skill set. You have to get to the point of barely competent before you become competent. And then you have to become just competent, decent before you get to like a highly skilled or mastery level at some point. You have to allow yourself to build up. You have to give yourself enough time to do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, the dogs are going crazy here, but I need a better office or something. There's just too many dogs. Yeah, one of the things that really struck me about what you're saying was about pushing yourself into places like that you're uncomfortable. This is like something you just have to do. And I think a lot of people just try to avoid that at all costs. And they will just say, well, I'd like to do this and that, but, it's too hard or something along those lines. It's like, no, if you really want to be successful in most things, you're going to have to push yourself into really uncomfortable situations. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and people just should know that. But at the same time, they should also know that those are the magical moments in life where you realize and you get through it one way or another. Maybe even if you fail, but you still learn from that situation.
In fact, I think that's probably the most important thing. It's up there with bringing value to the table, is making sure you're able to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, or be willing to be uncomfortable. You don't even need to be comfortable. I actually like to say, if you can't feel your heart pounding in your chest, you're not pushing yourself far enough. You should feel uncomfortable. You should feel destabilized a little bit, because that means you're outside of your comfort zone. And there's a saying that I like to say that I got from Michael Gerber, the author of E-Myth, which is a phenomenal book. He said, "Comfort makes cowards of us all." It's comfort, our desire for comfort, that's holding us back. As we step outside of our comfort zone, we are transforming, we're improving, we're building ourselves. Most of the good things in life are outside of our comfort zone. So if we insist on staying within our comfort zone, we insist on staying mediocre, staying of lower competence, staying with, you need to get out of your comfort zone, and you need to just accept being uncomfortable. There's a book that I read that the most important part of the book was its title. You don't actually even need to read the book. The title is all that matters. Feel the fear and do it anyway. It's a great book, just because of the title. You don't even need to read it. But feel the fear and do it anyway is an important life lesson. You need to do it. Feel that fear and do it anyway. And then at some point, you're going to get better. It's really uncomfortable when you have braces on and they go and they tighten it. And then you start to get comfortable with it after a little while. And what do? They tighten it again. And why? Because they're improving your teeth. So you need to do that with your life. Every time you get comfortable, you need to tighten the braces. And it's going to be challenging and you're not going to like it. And then as soon as you get comfortable enough, tighten those braces again. And then you'll realize you've blown past everybody around you because other people aren't doing that. They're all seeking comfort. They're avoiding discomfort while you were jumping into discomfort. And then suddenly everybody's wondering how the hell you did what you did. That's because you put yourself. That's why you see a lot of these like high-level businessmen doing crazy shit like helicopter skiing and stuff, where they jump out of helicopters with skis and like, because they are constantly keeping themselves in a state of pushing past their boundaries. They're not just in their business world, but they keep that up in their active life and in the way that they play, the way that they relax is insanity. They choose insanity to relax and have fun. So if you're not willing to do that, that's okay. Everybody's got their levels, but you're going to have to push yourself outside your comfort zone or just look around you and stay exactly where you are.
Yeah, you can just sit there and and be unhappy if you want. Just a few examples of my own where I've done pretty extreme things to get outside of my comfort zone. When I was like 17, I was so shy I couldn't even talk to anyone. I was a virgin until I was 21 for that reason. My dad told me to shut up my whole life. I could not even talk to people. I was literally like this when I was like 19 or 18, and rap music had come out and I loved it. And I thought, I'll become a rapper just so I have to go on stage, just so I can get out of this, because I want women and I can't even talk to them and I can't figure it out. There was no internet back then. There was no like how to be less shy course on the internet or anything like that. So I was like, do the most extreme thing possible. And that's actually what I usually do. And I was like, I'll become a rapper. And what happened? I became the #2 white rapper in Canada. It turned out that if you're #2 white rapper in Canada, you suck if you can't even be #1. So I realized that, moved on. Okay, I'll start a music studio. Okay, did some stuff, actually produced some pretty decent bands, but then realized this isn't my skill set. Music isn't my thing. I'm not very good. I didn't even know how to play keyboard or anything. I put actual full tracks together by myself, just using my computer skills, stuff like that. So then I'm like, okay, I'm out of this business. I suck at it. I want to be a broker is what I wanted to be. I like the stock market. So I learned everything I could about stockbroker, went into a bank, started in the mailroom, moved up to teller, moved up to doing loans, moved up to giving investment advice. And they actually wanted me make me bank manager when I was like 23 years old or something like that. Kind of a similar story to you. And they came in, and the top person for the bank, this is like a 300-year-old bank, came in to meet me and said, this is a very big day for you, Jeff. And I said, why? And they said, we're about to offer you bank manager position. You'll be the youngest bank manager in our bank's history. And I looked at them and I went, you know what? Actually, first thing I said is, how much does it pay? And they said, $40,000 a year. And I went, you know what? I'm just going to quit. And because I had already started a bit of an internet company, hadn't made much money yet, but I was like, do I want to be in this bank forever? And, to some people that might seem uncomfortable. To me, it actually was more uncomfortable, the thought of having to stay at that bank for the rest of my life. So then I jump into the internet company, that takes off $240 million, then goes to zero. My partner tries to kill himself. I pretty much tried to kill myself for a long time. Got back on my feet, traveled the world, learned about libertarianism, Austrian economics, and all that kind of stuff, and decided I needed to tell the world about this. So I started the Dollar Vigilante. And then I started Anarchast. Go look at the first episode. It's on YouTube of Anarchast. I was atrocious. I'll redo it for you. It's like, hello. Welcome to Anarchast. My name is Jeff. I had no idea how to do video, but look what happened. Yeah, I just did it. You just get out there and just do it. And look what happened. After doing 1,000 of them, I'm pretty good. Like, I'm not bad. And then cryptocurrencies come out, and then I'm able to do videos, and I have all this experience in videos, and now I'm a big Bitcoin cryptocurrency video guy. And it's all built and built and built from me just going out of my comfort zone constantly.
Jeff, if you met 17-year-old Jeff Berwick now, who's really shy, uncomfortable, wouldn't talk to people, and you explained that in the future you've got Anarchast show that beams to all these viewers, You run a dollar vigilante newsletter and investment advice company. You have other companies, real estate holdings, and you run a huge, successful, fastest growing conference in the liberty activism space. Would that guy recognize you?
No, he wouldn't have believed it. The only one thing I did know is I could be anything I wanted. For whatever reason, I had a self belief in my capabilities. But if we were to show a video of what I'm doing now, it'd be like, no, it can't be. It's just like not possible. So those are all the changes I've gone through, and I still go through changes. I've gone through changes in the last 2 years that are massive. I pretty much like threw away everything I was doing in life and restarted with a whole new way of life with all my health stuff and meditation, all this sort of stuff. And to a lot of people, that's scary. One of the first things I did when I said, okay, I'm going hard into this, I want to figure out this stuff. I looked up on the internet, what's the most craziest psychedelic you can do? Iboga. Signed up that day. It's like, just go for it. And it was torture. It was one of the hardest things I ever did, but it really helped me a lot. So yeah, just constantly getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I wouldn't recognize myself when I was in high school today. I've done a lot. And so all these people that are saying that they can't do it, well, the person that you will become, you're going to have to transform into that. And that person might not recognize the person that says, I can't do it. You need to start working. You need to start transforming. You were focused, like you were not happy with where you were. You were not comfortable with it. So you changed. Same with me. I was not okay with where I was. And I decided I need to get my shit together. And I need to push out and do other things. I was young, but you can do that at any age. There's nothing stopping anybody.
Absolutely. So I'm glad we did this conversation. I think it's really good information that you don't get from a lot of places for whatever reason. I'm not even sure why. You definitely don't get it in school. And I have things to do because I'm very busy, and you do as well. I know that you have been doing another new venture, some sort of cannabis related, another passion of yours, if you want to mention that. If there's anything else we haven't talked about too that you did want to mention, feel free. Otherwise, just mention what you're up to now.
Sure. You know what? Maybe we can keep this as like a series where we have more structured talks on this stuff. I'll come back on another time. I like talking to you. I have a company called Lit Club. It's we have these pre-roll. I don't know how is that showing correctly. I don't know. In any case, we have these pre-roll joints. So it's THC. So I'm selling drugs now. I brought some of these to Anarchast your conference. In fact, I was very impressed with how permissive Anarchast was. It was pretty awesome. I had a great time. I have a vape pen. It glows lit at the end. I've got drinks coming. I've got concentrates coming. We've got a few different product lines coming. The company's still getting set up in a lot of ways, but I'm very excited about the potential, and we're openly libertarian. So we're a cannabis company that's going very bold with the messaging. We didn't talk about it all today, but some of you know that I ran with McAfee for the Libertarian Party ticket. We ran a profoundly anti-political campaign. And it was more about just using the presidential run as a platform. And we had some really interesting bold messaging. Well, some of that bold messaging is going to continue with Lit Club. So I want people to look out and see what's coming. We're getting everything set up right now, but I'm very excited about this new venture. And I want us to be one of the more sophisticated options in the exploding cannabis industry.
That's awesome. So you're on to even more opportunities and more things around your passion. I know you're very passionate about cannabis, and it's great. And definitely be looking forward to seeing what you do with that. And maybe for the people watching, Judd did mention he wouldn't mind coming back on if there was other things to talk about that are related to this. So if you want, put in the notes below if there was some things that you would like us to talk about. And if I see some really interesting stuff, maybe we'll do this again sometime soon, because I also enjoy talking with you, Judd. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure as well. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. You know the guy down the street or your brother or your friend, and he's like, oh, I'm never going to succeed at anything. I don't know how. Send him this video. Maybe it'll get him a little bit sparked to something. Pretty much everyone out there, you can do anything you want, but you have to listen to some things we just said. You have to get out there and do it, and it's not going to be easy, but if you want to, you can achieve it. So that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.